For many older adults in the United States, the golden years are meant to be a time of rest, enjoyment, and reflection. Yet, with increasing age, some daily routines that once seemed harmless may actually begin to interfere with health, especially brain health. Memory slips, mental fog, daytime drowsiness, and insomnia are all too familiar to seniors. And while these symptoms are often chalked up to just getting older, one specific daily habit is gaining attention for its surprising role in cognitive decline: long afternoon naps. This is the story of Harold Thompson, a 74-year-old retired school principal from Ohio, whose memory problems were tied not to disease, but to the length of his naps. His discovery, supported by scientific research from leading American universities, has since inspired dozens of his peers, and could do the same for you. 1. Harold's wake-up call. Harold Thompson was the kind of man who always kept his life in order. He had been a well-respected high school principal in his hometown for over 30 years. After retirement, he kept to a structured routine: breakfast at 7 a.m., lunch at noon, a long nap in the early afternoon, and reading or walking in the evening. But something began to shift. At first, he misplaced his reading glasses. Then he forgot the name of a neighbor he'd known for 2 decades. He'd reread pages of books because he couldn't recall what he'd just finished. It wasn't alarming yet. But the day he got lost driving home from his favorite diner, only 10 blocks from his house, he knew something wasn't right. His daughter, Melissa, worried he was developing early dementia. She made an appointment with a neurologist who ran a battery of cognitive tests. Surprisingly, Harold scored only slightly below average. The doctor asked about his daily routine, especially his sleep. That's when Harold casually mentioned his 90-minute afternoon nap, usually starting around 3 p.m. The doctor nodded slowly and said, "That might be more significant than you think." 2. What science says about long naps and cognitive decline. For years, researchers have explored the relationship between napping and brain health. A pivotal study by the University of California, San Francisco, in collaboration with the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, followed over 2,800 adults, aged 65 and up, across 5 years. Participants who regularly napped longer than 90 minutes were found to have a 40% higher risk of developing mild cognitive impairment than those who took shorter naps or none at all. Dr. Michael Scullin, a neuroscientist specializing in sleep and memory at Baylor University, explains, "While short naps can help improve alertness and mood, longer naps can push the body into deeper stages of sleep. Waking from deep sleep in the middle of the day can cause confusion, reduce nighttime sleep quality, and ultimately impair memory consolidation. This sleep inertia, the groggy, dazed state after waking from a deep nap, affects seniors more profoundly than younger adults." Long naps also interfere with the circadian rhythm, the body's natural internal clock, which is already more fragile with age. The takeaway? Naps aren't bad, but long naps can be. 3. The ideal nap duration for seniors. So, when is the ideal time for a nap? According to recommendations from the U.S. National Institute on Aging, a short nap lasting between 30 to 40 minutes can offer tremendous benefits for older adults without disrupting nighttime sleep or leaving them feeling groggy afterward. This brief rest period isn't just an ideal window for recharging the body. It's also a gentle pause in the middle of the day that helps soothe the mind and refresh brain function for the hours ahead. Harold Thompson had no idea about this until he spoke with his doctor. For years, he believed that a long nap in the afternoon was a healthy indulgence, a way to make up for sleepless nights or early mornings. For him, a 90-minute nap seemed completely normal, even necessary. But in recent months, something began to feel off. He often woke up from these naps with a heavy head and sluggish limbs, as though he'd just emerged from an incomplete or disturbed sleep. At first, he blamed it on age, assuming that fatigue and forgetfulness were simply part of getting older. But as time went on, the signs became harder to ignore. His thoughts were cloudy, his memory patchy, and his moods increasingly unpredictable. It wasn't until a routine checkup that things began to change. When his doctor asked about his daily habits, Harold casually mentioned his long afternoon naps. To his surprise, the doctor didn't immediately diagnose any condition. Instead, they had a conversation about human circadian rhythms, the body's internal clock, and how those rhythms naturally shift with age. The doctor explained that when we nap too long, our bodies can enter deep sleep, and waking up during this stage can lead to what's known as sleep inertia, a groggy, disoriented state that lingers and affects alertness. Worse still, long naps like Harold's could throw off the body's natural rhythm, making it even harder to fall asleep at night, and potentially triggering a cascade of issues with memory, mood, and heart health. For Harold, the conversation was a wake-up call. For the first time in years, he realized that the fatigue and cognitive fog he was experiencing might not be inevitable signs of aging, but rather consequences of a well-intentioned but misguided habit. With renewed determination, he began to rethink his daily routine and seriously consider changing his nap habits. It marked a crucial turning point in his journey toward better aging, one he never saw coming. 4. Building a senior-friendly nap routine. For Harold, changing his nap routine wasn't as simple as setting an alarm or finding a quiet corner. It took real effort and the guidance of a sleep coach, someone recommended by his doctor who specialized in sleep patterns among older adults. Together, they began mapping out a routine that would be not only sustainable for someone in Harold's age group, but also sensitive to his personal lifestyle and health needs. The first adjustment came in the form of timing. After reviewing Harold's energy levels throughout the day, they agreed that the early afternoon, at least 30 minutes after lunch, it aligned perfectly with what scientists refer to as the post-lunch dip, a natural drop in energy that happens to many people after eating. By aligning his nap with this biological rhythm, Harold could take advantage of the body's cues without disrupting his ability to fall asleep at night. But timing was just one piece of the puzzle. The environment also mattered. Harold took time to transform a corner of his living room into a space dedicated entirely to rest. He chose a soft, reclining chair that supported his back and legs without making him too comfortable. He didn't want to fall into deep sleep. He drew blackout curtains to dim the room and reduce noise from the street. A small fan added a constant, calming hum of white noise, which helped block out distracting sounds. He even kept a light blanket and a small pillow nearby, just enough to feel cozy without slipping too far into slumber. Next came the challenge of staying within the ideal nap duration. Harold was surprised to learn how easy it was to oversleep, especially when he felt tired going into the nap. To help manage this, he used a small alarm clock with a gradual volume setting so the sound would wake him gently rather than jolt him awake. The goal was to rise refreshed, not rattled. Setting the timer for exactly 30 minutes became part of his routine, a boundary that gave him both structure and confidence. Interestingly, Harold also changed where he napped. While lying in bed had once been his default choice, he now avoided it. His coach explained that napping in bed could confuse his brain, making it harder to separate daytime rest from nighttime sleep. By using his armchair instead, Harold trained his mind to treat naps as short, intentional breaks rather than full sleep cycles. Once the nap ended, Harold developed a gentle post-nap routine. He would stand up slowly, stretch, drink a glass of water, and walk a few blocks around the neighborhood. Sometimes, he'd turn on the radio and listen to light-hearted tunes, letting the music lift his spirits. These small actions helped him fully transition from rest to activity and prevented the sluggishness that used to follow his longer naps. This new approach to napping didn't just improve Harold's afternoons, it transformed his entire day. He became more alert, more engaged with the world around him, and far less frustrated with his memory lapses. Most importantly, he began to feel a renewed sense of control over his own body. What once felt like inevitable signs of aging were now manageable pieces of a much bigger picture. The art of aging well, one good nap at a time. 5. The ripple effects of change. As the weeks passed, Harold began to notice subtle but powerful shifts in his daily life. His new nap routine wasn't just a one-time adjustment, it became the anchor around which his afternoons started to stabilize. Where he used to feel foggy and slow after waking, he now found himself energized and surprisingly clear-headed. That short 30-minute window of rest became a moment he looked forward to, not only for the calm it brought, but for the sense of rhythm it added to his days. His wife, Marlene, was the first to comment on the difference. "You seem more yourself again," she said one afternoon as they shared tea on the porch. Harold smiled at the remark. He hadn't realized just how much his fatigue had been affecting their interactions. Conversations that had once drifted into silence now flowed with ease. He found himself remembering details, finishing stories, and even initiating plans, like suggesting they visit their daughter's family that weekend. It was as if a veil had been lifted from his mind. The improvements extended beyond the emotional. Harold's evening sleep became more consistent. Gone were the nights of tossing and turning until the early hours. By cutting back on his midday sleep and syncing with his body's natural rhythms, he was now falling asleep faster and waking up fewer times during the night. That alone made his days brighter. His blood pressure readings also improved slightly during his next checkup, and though his doctor didn't directly attribute it to his naps, Harold couldn't help but feel that the change played a part. Even the simple act of walking around the block after each nap gave him a renewed appreciation for his neighborhood. He began to recognize familiar faces, wave to neighbors, and linger a little longer at the community garden. These interactions brought him joy and a renewed sense of belonging, something he hadn't realized he was missing. Looking back, Harold was struck by how one small decision, limiting his naps, had led to such a cascade of positive outcomes. It reminded him that even in his 70s, his choices still had power. Change wasn't reserved for the young. It was available to anyone, at any age, willing to listen, learn, and take that first intentional step. 6. The unexpected benefits of rest. Harold couldn't believe how much a simple 30-minute nap had transformed his life. It had been just a few weeks since he started making the change, and already he felt more alert, more energetic, and more in control of his day-to-day routine. But it wasn't just about feeling good during the afternoon. The improvements he had noticed in his sleep, his mood, and his overall sense of well-being were more profound than he could have imagined. Before, he'd always thought naps were for the lazy or those who couldn't handle the demands of a busy day. He'd seen them as an indulgence, something unnecessary, even counterproductive, especially when he'd been used to long naps that stretched out into 90 minutes or more. He had believed that the longer he slept, the better he would feel. But now, with his new routine, Harold had started to understand that less truly could be more when it came to rest. He started waking up from his naps with a clear head, no longer groggy or disoriented. There was no sluggish feeling that dragged him through the rest of the afternoon. He could focus more easily on conversations, enjoy his daily walks, and even get back to his hobbies with a renewed enthusiasm. It was as if a switch had flipped, and he no longer needed to fight the weariness that used to cloud his mind. Harold's evening routine, too, had improved dramatically. He now fell asleep faster at night and stayed asleep longer, waking up fewer times throughout the night. In the past, he had struggled to get quality rest, waking up frequently, and sometimes lying awake for hours. But now, with better rested days, his nights felt more restorative. One evening, after another successful nap, Harold sat down to have dinner with Marlene, feeling an energy he hadn't felt in years. As they shared a quiet meal, he reflected on how much he had changed, not just in his habits, but in his mindset. He was no longer the man who saw rest as a luxury or a sign of weakness. Instead, he'd come to realize that proper rest, whether it was a short nap or a full night's sleep, was essential to his well-being, especially as he grew older. It wasn't just about his body getting rest, either. It was about his mind and his emotions, too. By listening to his body and taking control of his sleep patterns, Harold found a sense of balance and clarity he hadn't known in years. 7. Community awakening. As Harold's health improved and his spirits lifted, he found himself wanting to share what he'd learned. One morning, while walking through the local senior center after a Tai Chi class, he casually mentioned to a few friends how a simple change in his nap routine had made a world of difference. What started as a brief exchange turned into a lively discussion. "You mean just 30 minutes?" asked Bob, a retired firefighter known for his afternoon snoring in the reading room. "That's barely enough time to get comfortable." Harold laughed, but nodded. "That's what I thought too. But it turns out, longer naps were messing up my nights and my memory. Since I cut back, I feel like I got part of my life back. That conversation sparked curiosity. The next week, the senior center invited a wellness coach to host an informal talk about healthy sleep habits. Dozens showed up, many with notebooks, ready to learn. It wasn't just about naps anymore. It became a larger conversation about how older adults could take charge of their own rhythms instead of feeling at the mercy of fatigue or forgetfulness. Harold never set out to be a leader, but in sharing his experience, he became one. Neighbors began asking him how he adjusted his routine, what kind of chair he used for his nap, whether the white noise machine really worked. Slowly, the idea of mindful napping, once dismissed as trivial, became a common theme around morning coffee and afternoon walks. More importantly, something shifted in the atmosphere of the community itself. People seemed more alert, more present, even a bit more optimistic. There was renewed energy in the garden club, more smiles during line dancing classes, and a sense that aging didn't have to mean giving up control. If anything, Harold's story was proof that it was never too late to make a change that could ripple through one's life and through the lives of others. 8. Beyond napping, the bigger picture of sleep. While optimizing Harold's nap routine was an essential step, maintaining long-term cognitive health ultimately depends on an overall balanced lifestyle. Harold quickly realized that sleep was just one piece of the puzzle. To fully embrace the benefits of rest, he needed to make adjustments across different areas of his daily life. Here are the key lessons Harold learned and began to practice. One of the first lessons Harold discovered was the importance of maintaining a consistent sleep schedule. He had often gone to bed at varying times and found himself waking up at different hours each day, especially on weekends when he would stay up late. However, after adjusting his routine, Harold made sure to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, including weekends. He aimed for a consistent 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. It wasn't always easy, especially when life got in the way. But he noticed a significant difference in how he felt upon waking. His energy levels were higher throughout the day, and he found himself falling asleep faster at night. With this newfound discipline, his sleep quality improved considerably, contributing to his overall health. Alongside a consistent sleep schedule, Harold also began to incorporate gentle movement into his routine. He realized that exercise didn't need to be intense to have a positive impact on his well-being. He started with activities like Tai Chi, gentle yoga, and daily walks in his neighborhood. These light exercises were particularly beneficial for seniors like Harold, improving his mood, boosting his memory, and enhancing his sleep quality. Regular movement helped him feel more physically agile, and mentally, it brought a calmness that carried him through the day. To keep his mind sharp, Harold also focused on mental exercises. He found that activities like reading, solving puzzles, and playing memory games were excellent ways to challenge his brain and keep his cognitive function active. Harold joined a local Scrabble club and even enrolled in an online history course designed for seniors. These activities not only kept him mentally engaged, but also provided a sense of accomplishment and social connection. Social interaction was another critical element of Harold's overall health plan. He made an effort to connect with others regularly, as he knew that staying socially engaged was key to combating isolation and depression, both of which can impact cognitive function in older adults. Harold reconnected with old friends and even began volunteering to read at a local elementary school. These interactions brought him joy and purpose, while also providing valuable opportunities to stay connected with his community. Another aspect of his new routine involved his diet. Harold started focusing on foods that supported brain health, such as blueberries, leafy greens, and nuts. He incorporated whole grains and fatty fish into his meals, while cutting back on sugar and processed foods. He quickly noticed how the quality of his diet made him feel better physically, and how it impacted his mental clarity and overall energy. Finally, Harold learned the importance of getting plenty of natural sunlight. He started walking outside each morning, allowing the morning sun to regulate his melatonin levels and set his body's natural sleep-wake cycle. These morning walks became his daily dose of sunlight, helping him maintain a healthy circadian rhythm and, in turn, contributing to his better sleep at night. Through these changes, Harold came to understand that sleep wasn't the only factor in maintaining cognitive health and overall wellness. By focusing on a balanced lifestyle that incorporated consistent sleep, gentle movement, mental stimulation, social connections, healthy eating, and natural sunlight, Harold was able to significantly improve his quality of life. The small adjustments he made to his routine were life-changing, not just for his sleep, but for his overall health and well-being. One clear morning, as Harold sat sipping a warm cup of coffee on his porch, he opened the journal he had sporadically written in over the past few months. The pages were filled with notes about his journey to change his nap habits, scattered thoughts, and moments that seemed insignificant at the time. Now they unfolded as a complete and meaningful story. He never expected that adjusting what seemed like a small habit could open a new chapter in his life. A chapter where not only his physical and mental health was restored, but also where he found a deeper sense of purpose. Harold began to rewrite his story in a more organized way, wanting to share it with his peers, those who might be feeling tired, lost, or lacking motivation. He knew that many older adults quietly endure physical and mental decline, thinking it's the natural course of aging, not realizing they could do something to change it. With a simple and sincere tone, Harold started sending his writings to a local newsletter aimed at seniors. It wasn't long before he received positive responses. Some people wrote letters of thanks, while others called to ask more about how he adjusted his nap schedule. What began as a personal journey grew into a quiet movement within his community, subtle but profound. Harold often told his friends that change didn't have to start with something monumental. Sometimes it was as simple as choosing the right moment to rest, and that decision alone could help you take control of your life again. Now, in his early 70s, Harold wasn't just living, he was truly enjoying life. And with each short but quality nap, he felt as though he was sending himself a message. There's still so much beauty ahead, as long as we stay awake and have the faith to keep moving forward.